Today's video is sponsored by Brilliant.org. Brilliant is the best way to learn math, science, and computer science interactively. Applying what you're learning as you're learning is the best way that I learn something. Interactive questions, hands-on programming, and awesome visuals streamline learning in easily digestible lessons. Brilliant has thousands of lessons, with exclusive new content added monthly. If you're interested in computer science, thinking logically, brushing up on calculus, or exploring the foundations of data science, there's a course for you. Brilliant will help you learn specific skills, like understanding how probability works. And it turns out that understanding probability reveals how cruel the dice gods can be. I struggled with understanding math because I'm a visual person. Random numbers on a board and a boring teacher were a recipe for barely passing grades. Brilliant structures its lessons like stories that actually explain how the math works. To get started for free, visit brilliant.org/allthingsdnd or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. And now what you're here for. Hello, I will psychologically profile your players, DM. I'm 26 years old and female. I have a Wednesday campaign that I run for some friends, and I decided to invite a couple new people to round out the group. I posted on the Looking for Groups subreddit as you do, and ended up interviewing a couple of people. There was this one guy who was great on paper. We'll call him Quill. Quill seemed like a nice guy, and he was very into roleplay, so I invited him to meet with everyone else already in the group. Thank God I did, because that's when things started to take a turn. First, there was some general social awkwardness, easy to deal with, but overall people got along. He was sycophantic specifically towards the women and non-binary of the group, and gave them a multitude of compliments, making sure that they weren't spoken over or condescended to by the one male player. Which would be fine in like a normal group of strangers, I guess, but this group Quill joined had been friends for years. We've played together in several games, and having been around them for, like I said, years, I can safely say Quill was seeing issues where there were none. Additionally, he spoke positively about robbing people in the past in real life. He seemed to find it funny, which we found concerning to say the least. Anyways, the conversation with Quill ends, and about 20 minutes later he DMs me apropos of nothing. Here's the gist. It was a long message. Male player is garrulous, talks over people and seems to want to explain things. Doesn't seem to understand some cues. Non-binary player is lovely and seems to have a clear direction of the social environment she wants to create. He misgenders them. He didn't know they were he/they, so not necessarily his fault, but I feel it gives some insight into his thought process. Female player definitely loves talking, but also seems to not see some cues as well. I sense they're willing to impose. This group seems emotionally stable, functioning and very patient with each other and me. I'll let you know. I have a timer for male player, and since he talks over people, I feel it's alright to talk over them. At this point I can't really ask, but I wonder if there's some kind of neurodivergent, and I'm just going to assume the best that male player is hyper self-aware neurodivergent. Non-binary player is a brilliant breath of fresh air. She seems to be very strong socially and emotionally. Female player, some talk just to talk behavior. She throws things out and I see evidence of unreturned attention. I see myself navigating around male player's ramblings, which is a light cost to patience, and will probably be enabling non-binary player and occasionally female player. I see myself pushing around to get male player to speak narratively about himself, rather than abstractly or instructively, which can seem condescending. Is there a role in the group that would be helpful for you? This message was pretty strange to me. I never expressed any interest in hearing what he thought about the group, or if he had any misgivings. We had literally finished speaking 20 minutes before this message. So I asked for some clarification on if he thought there would be issues in the future. Yeah, I just wanted to be upfront. I don't foresee any issues with what I would do. I think in large that's sort of the strategy that everyone's already adopted, which is being patient with rambling. If male player feels bothered by me talking over him, even though he talks over others, that's my only worry. But male player doesn't seem like someone with aggressive tendencies. It doesn't feel good to be condescended to or to talk over others. This made me pretty uncomfortable. It sounded like the campaign was starting off with intra-player issues, and we hadn't even had a session 0 yet. I was curious about how deep this psychoanalyzing went, so I asked if he had one about me. He did. Here it is. You were and are lovely, brave, and confident. You seem to have experience with the table, and all the social aspects that follow and inspire confidence in me that you're capable of saying no. You like your friends, although sometimes it feels like you can either bite off more than you can chew, or your confidence varies. Yesterday's DM is not tomorrow's DM. You value a poker face, not revealing your cards. That's my cold call. After speaking with my friends about the messages, I ended up kicking Quill from the game. I sent him this final message. To be honest, I've spent the day thinking about your psychological profile of the party, and I have to say this message was incredibly presumptuous and rude. Putting aside that they're some of my closest friends, even doing this in a group of complete strangers would be grounds enough to be immediately kicked. I'm not sure if you make this sort of thing a habit, but I would recommend thinking twice if you do. If you've been kicked without warning before in games where you've done this, that's probably why. Not only is it immediately stressful for the DM, but it puts a pall on the entire party going forward, because they'll always be on the lookout for potential intra-party issues. Everyone has their quirks. That's something you need to understand when joining games with strangers. Some people talk a lot. Some people like to explain things. Some people are quiet. That's just how it is. People aren't always going to get along, and that's completely fine. Not everyone will like each other, but cataloging how well you get along with someone after a single interaction is setting your relationships up for failure. Don't join a TTRPG group, psychologically profile the players, and send that profile to the DM. Silver lining, I suppose, he did apologize. I always dread potentially hurting someone's feelings, but in this instance I feel like I needed to say something regardless. Glad that there was at least some good that came out of it. User Irontide sums up exactly what I was thinking with this comment. Tell me you've just taken Psych 101 without saying it. And here's another story about a male player having an issue with how women do things. In early 2021, I joined a Warhammer Fantasy game module called Enemy Within. Enemy Within is a very long, very difficult campaign, and I was excited to finally find a dedicated group who would want to run it on Sunday nights, because at the time that's the only time I could do it. I had decided to play a Britannian thief, and then later promoted into a spy named Nanette. Nanette had taken a lot of inspiration from Safana from Baldur's Gate, but of course to a low degree that is tolerable, such as instead of being overly sensuous, she would be confident in her beauty, value treasure, and maintain her beauty. Personally, Safana is my favorite character because of her confidence, and has been inspiring to me for at least 10 years. Instead of being sensual, I would have Nanette admire her own beauty and care about her appearance, as well as regale with tall tales of exploits and lovers. The party: Nanette, me, vain Britannian jewel thief; Masha, male player offended by feminine expression, played a female Kislevian knight who believes that women should be tomboys in tabletop; Jory, GM who was weirded out by Masha's picking on me as well; Fabian, Talian scout, also a subject of Masha's ire. Before I had joined, I had scrolled up and saw that Masha had said he didn't want me to join, as he felt 2 women in the party would be awkward, because he felt that it would ruin the aesthetic. What aesthetic? Women are not for aesthetic purposes, is what I had wanted to say, but instead created my character. Everything was fine, and I generally avoided Masha until session 2, when we had formally met Fabian. Fabian had asked thankfully to kiss my hand, jokingly admiring the beauty my character constantly speaks of. We all laugh at the table before Masha rudely interjects and says, "Why are you whoring yourself out to this stranger? We have work to do," before I even had a chance to say yes or no to the offer. Everyone just kinda went quiet before I just ignored him, and tell Fabian no. After the session, the GM had pulled Masha aside, scolding him before next week against my wishes. Apparently, Jory has a zero-tolerance policy for in-game and out-of-character sexism towards another player, which I didn't know about. Masha had seemingly changed, and had since apologized until we had reached Altdorf. After fighting a bright wizard, Nanette's hair had become slightly charred by Jory's description, even jokingly, and decided to use her own money to purchase a hairbrush, and then take a hot bath. After I told the party my intent in our downtime in Altdorf, Masha has an absolute meltdown. Why are you portraying women like that? No girl is like that, and the girls that are usually die in Warhammer or raped to death. To which, massaging my temples, I respond, "How are you going to tell me how to portray a woman as a man?" The GM then muted Masha, and then kicked him from the game and Discord, apologizing profusely before he ended the session there for the week. Masha, not done with the drama, joined the Discord on an alt, along with 2 others, and decided to spam me, calling me whore, fat, and ugly. I had found it mildly amusing, posting screenshots I had taken of Masha's previous rantings, about how he wants to be the only woman before he's kicked. I will never understand how a man can tell a woman how she should act, should behave in a roleplay setting, and what their core principles should be. Masha, if you're listening to this, just know that not every girl wants to swing a sword, drink beer, act snarky, or roleplay being a lesbian like you. As for the game, we're still going strong. I was the one who suggested we share this just so I can vent this out of my system. Now, whenever we meet a female NPC, there's always a slight bit of laughter, because we know it would make Masha furious. A tale as old as time. Guy RP's girl in a way that is basically a guy with long hair. Classic gross. Tell us about your stories on how you were expected to act in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.